Hello. So here we go with one more video for you guys. Will I become a blogger? Will I become an Instagrammer? Who knows? But I take real pleasure in doing this, and apparently so does my dog, who wants to really participate in this. So this is another amateur video, kind of, I was gonna say zero professional, but that's not actually true. I'd say like 2 out of 10, you know. So I don't have a fancy background, nothing like this, just my house, and well, there's even a pillow there. Yeah, so I decided to record this because I was thinking a lot about the impact of having an accent when speaking English, and this is an issue that really comes up basically in all classes that I teach. So all my students, right now, all my students are Brazilian. I have already taught English to people from other nationalities, but nowadays I only teach Brazilians, and all of them okay, kind of had a hard time remembering one thing. So all of them, with no exceptions, they are very concerned about the way that they pronounce things. And I understand this up to a point. You know, you should actually, when you're learning a new language, you should indeed be concerned about how you pronounce certain words, especially because if you change the pronunciation of some words, you can change totally the meaning of them, and then it impacts your ability to communicate, okay? But there is a difference between having an accent and pronouncing things right, okay? So most of us Brazilians, we are gonna have an accent if we didn't learn English in the early stages of our lives. And is that a problem or not? So how should we approach this topic? Most people come to me and they ask, so how come you don't have such a pronounced Brazilian accent, or sometimes you don't even have a Brazilian accent? How's that for you? How did this happen? Like, I do have an accent, first of all. So, did you study English when you were a child? And yes, I started studying it when I was around 6 or 7 years old. That's when I started in a private language school. And I really thought this wouldn't make a difference throughout my life, but it really did. Because even though I didn't learn complex structures at the time, I got in touch with the language and I learned some vocabulary from a very early age. And this was around the time that I was becoming more proficient in writing in Portuguese. So then those two things happened at the same time. So I became proficient in writing in Portuguese and English. So those things kind of bound together in my brain. But about the accent thing. So usually I tell my students, you don't need to care so much about having an accent. You need to care about making yourself understood. And okay, this is what you would hear from most teachers, from most professionals. Accent is not that relevant if it doesn't impair your communication skills. But I do want to make a cutting into that, and it's something that people don't talk about very much. And I myself was trying to do some research about this before recording this video, but I found actually not a lot of things about that, and I decided I wanted to talk about it, which is linguistic racism or xenophobia, linguistic xenophobia. And here's the thing, it doesn't really matter most of the time if you have an accent, as long as you're European or you're white. And why did I want to bring this topic? Because I tell everyone that they shouldn't really care very much about their accent, but I myself do care a lot about my accent. And I'm not gonna lie, I like having this clean is a bad word to use, but I like to have a proficient English and not having a very apparent Brazilian accent. And why is that? This is because it buys me a little bit more of respect, which is, as a black woman, I don't have to tell you how hard that is at times. So with my English, when I start to speak English, something really funny and kind of sad happens, which is I have more confidence. I actually feel a lot more confident when I speak in English than in Portuguese, because I know that people look at me and they're like, wow, let's listen what she's saying, because it's interesting, because I want to listen to her English, because it's nice to listen to it. Usually Brazilians will act that way. In the United States, when I was there, of course, it was not a big deal, but one thing happened, which was people sometimes they mistook me for an American. And this was good because I could just blend in and made things easier for me, Just a minute, because this is like, I have a really bad support for this phone and it keeps coming down. Okay. Yeah, guys, you're gonna have to excuse me for that because I don't have any professional equipment for that. So, yeah, so it would be really common that people just thought it was American or from maybe some different part of the country, or coming from another native English speaking country, I don't know. And this often put me above others. When I was there with the other exchange students, I was always grouped together with the students from Sweden or Switzerland, for example, and the other Latin students, the Asian students, mostly students from the global South, were grouped in it wasn't something so prominent, something that you could see like, okay, so we have here a group of the people with the bad English. I'm using a lot of quotes here because obviously it's not bad English, it was just the way that it was seen back then. So the group of people with the bad English and the group of people with the good English, and I was grouped with the good English people. And now that I think about it, I was the only black woman there, one of the few women actually in this group. All of them were white, all of them were European, and we actually received different instructions from the other group because I'm not gonna say the name of the program, okay, because I don't want to get into that. But they told us, okay, so you guys, you have very good English. People maybe think that you were actually American, and if you don't, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna understand everything that is being said, or maybe you're gonna misuse a word or another because it's not your native tongue, and maybe people are not gonna understand that. Maybe they're gonna think that you are playing with them, or that you're not being serious about certain issues, I don't know, because they would think that we were Americans pretending not to understand something, so this was the kind of instruction that we received. And very recently it got me thinking a lot, about this whole thing with the accent, and if I am actually doing the right thing by telling my students that they shouldn't care very much about the accent. Well, that's what I have to tell you. If you are white, especially if you're European, but I think that most people that are watching this are Brazilians, because that's the public that I am addressing. If you're white, then you don't have to care as much, Maybe among Brazilians, we judge each other very much, and that's a big problem, but that's a whole complete different issue. But if you're traveling abroad and you're white and you have an accent, people are most likely to think it's cute, okay? But if you have the appearance of a migrant, like I do, and other people, Asians and Middle East in general, Africans, if you look like us, like a minority group, probably people are not gonna think it's cute. They're just gonna judge you and just assume that your English is not good enough because of what? Because of how you look. So that's a reality, and that's something we need to address. And I'm gonna leave a link here. I it should be showing somewhere. I don't know exactly how to do with those like technological stuff, but I'll try my best, I swear. So this was after doing some digging on the internet. I found this link, and I'm gonna leave it here because it may bring some light to people who are trying to tackle this issue also and are not very sure about where to start. But I want to make it clear that I didn't know which term to research. You know, I kept on typing things like English, speaking English with an accent, Brazilians with an accent. Should we worry so much about our accents? You know, because no one has ever spoken to me about linguistic racism. Actually, I heard this term for the first time today. So if you want to Google more into that, this is a term that you can put there in the search box, and that's the link that I'm leaving here below. It's a BBC article, but sure, you can explore more things like academic articles. I actually didn't do a lot of reading to record this video. I'm just blurting all the things out here for you guys. And I'd love to develop a little bit more on this topic, you know, and there are many things that we got to think about. Like, for example, I used to say this too, okay, that Indians have a hard English to understand, for example. So English is one of the official languages of India, okay? So first Hindi, then English, and they have a bunch of other official languages there, like 22, if I'm not mistaken, official ones. But mother tongues in the country, it's like over 200 languages, okay? But even though English is one of the official languages, Indians are commonly treated as if they don't know good English, or yeah, in general, they're just prejudiced against. So why do we do that? Because they don't speak the acceptable English. And the same thing happens, for example, with the African Americans. Especially the ones who live in the United States, they speak the African American English, and a lot of people refer to this English as being the wrong English. So we need to be very attentive to the references that we use as to what is good English, what is bad English, okay? I'm not gonna lie, you know, when I'm speaking, I try to keep my accent as close as possible to the accent of Western United States, so Oregon, which is where I lived, and California, because I know that this English is more acceptable, and it's just like, it makes me sound cool and not discriminated against. But it's not because I would love to learn other accents, but that's the accent that pushes me forward as an English teacher. Actually, you know, most people would choose me because of my accent. So this is just something I want to put there on the table for all of us to think about, okay? And I want to reinforce that this video was made with no cuttings, okay, no preparation. I'm just saying all those things here because I felt like I wanted to share them, and it was making me very anxious to think about all those things, okay? And later, I'll tell you why I came to all those reflections. I was actually watching Barbie on the movies today, and it got me thinking about the English and the influence of North America over everything, and I don't know, my head works in strange ways. So, hope to see you in another video. Bye.